When you think of a well-known automotive nameplate, it's pretty hard to argue with the Chevrolet Blazer. This is a name that was among the best-selling vehicles of its time in the US back in the early 1990s. And when Chevy decided to bring back the coveted Blazer nameplate back to the States about 6 years ago, it was reborn as a Camaro-like car-based crossover SUV. Now for 2024, Chevy is looking to introduce an even more modern version of the Blazer with this model here. This is the 2024 Blazer EV, an all-electric version of this very new crossover that offers up to 324 miles of range, and for you enthusiasts out there, the first ever SS performance variant that is fully electric, which is capable of doing 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds. So as you can see, this week we are testing out for a full week the mid-trim of the Blazer EV. This is known as the RS with the company's dual motor all-wheel drive system, and the big question I went answered. For those of you who are looking for a mid-size premium electric SUV, has Chevy managed to raise the bar with this first ever Blazer EV? Stay tuned to find out. So before we start talking about the exterior styling differences between the Blazer EV and the regular gas-powered Blazer, I thought I'd pop the hood and show you guys what's underneath here, because with an electric vehicle, the million-dollar question always is there a front storage space? And as you can see, sadly, just like its platform mates, the Blazer EV does not offer a front trunk. Now, when you look underneath the hood, you can see there's a lot of plastic covering up all the internals basically for this motor, which again, as you guys know, this vehicle is built on the Ultium architecture that it also shares with the Cadillac Lyriq, for example, or the Hummer EV SUV and the truck. In the Blazer EV, however, it's a completely different animal, because this is one of the few vehicles out there on the market that offers a choice between either front-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, or all-wheel drive. You can get all three configurations in the US in this RS trim, although as of this filming, the front-wheel drive variant is not available. This model that I'm showing you here is the mid-trim level option. It's got the company's dual-motor all-wheel drive system with the mid-size 85 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery pack. Now, what that means is you get a front electric motor delivering around 241 horsepower, a separate rear electric motor giving this vehicle all-wheel drive that delivers around 90 horsepower. Combined, Chevy says you have 288 horsepower and 333 pound-feet of torque. Now, what's interesting is the rear drive model actually has a bigger 102 kilowatt-hour battery pack and more power via its rear electric motor delivering 325 horsepower. That number is very comparable, or I'm sorry, 340 horsepower. That number is very comparable, of course, to the rear-wheel drive Cadillac Lyriq, which we had a chance to drive about 2 years ago. It all goes out through a 1-speed reduction gear transmission, of course. This all-wheel drive model obviously has electronic all-wheel drive. Chevy doesn't claim a 0 to 60 time. I got a sub 6 seconds the last time I tested it. It has a top speed of around 118 miles an hour. This vehicle with the smaller battery can tow a maximum of 1,500 pounds. The rear drive can tow about 3,500 pounds, and as this car sits, it weighs in at just over 5,200 pounds. So obviously it's no lightweight. This vehicle isn't even built on the same platform as the gas-powered Blazer. This is built off of the dedicated EV platform called Ultium. But let's go ahead and close up this hood and talk about the exterior styling. Now, this particular one that I'm showing you is painted in a color called Sterling Gray Metallic. It's a very light gray, and it's also a free color. It's not an extra charge for this paint charge. I have to say, here in the sunlight, it's very much more silvery, and there's a beautiful metallic sparkle to the paint. It looks really good along the lines of the Blazer EV. You can see the RS trim is currently the highest trim that you can buy. The SS is going to be coming out late this summer, and with the RS trim, you get some optional upgrades. You can see all Blazer EVs come with their company's full LED headlights with an LED turn signal, LED low and high beams. The SS includes an LED light bar that goes across the middle and an illuminated Chevrolet bow tie logo. It definitely looks pretty cool at night. It gives it a more modern, futuristic vibe. The RS also has a more SS-inspired black painted, textured actual grille front bumper area. It's not an actual grille itself. There is a little opening here that allows some air to pass through. There's an RS badge. No fog lights on the vehicle. You can see there's the sensor for the adaptive cruise control. Currently, as of this filming, however, Chevy does not offer their Super Cruise feature, which is strange because you can get it on the Equinox EV, a smaller, cheaper version that's also built on the same architecture. But the SS will likely is what's going to include the actual Super Cruise. You can see front camera system and integrated parking sensors, which are nicely flush within the body of the vehicle. And overall, you can see the Blazer EV definitely has more of a wagon or long roof wagon profile. I particularly thought this car was good looking, at least until I saw its platform mates as well, like the Honda Prologue, the Acura ZDX, the Lyriq, the Equinox EV. I actually think is also better looking this car, but looks are always subjective. Moving around the side profile, this is where the Blazer EV is is an interesting looking, or has an interesting looking silhouette because it has a really long wheelbase, just shy of 122 inches. Its overall length is just over 192 inches long. It's around 5 inches shorter than the Cadillac Lyriq, but it's about the same size as the Honda Prologue. Remember, the two vehicles are one in the same. You can see the RS includes these two-tone 21-inch aerodynamic style alloy wheels. You can see it's got a 6-lug design, 4-wheel disc brakes, and the Bridgestone Alenza all-season tires are measuring 275 by 45 R21. You have an all-independent suspension, no air suspension, no adaptive dampers, but Chevy says you have around 7.9 inches of ground clearance. The RS includes black painted accents along the wheel arches. And then you can see here, looking at the charge port door, it's power actuated just like on the Lyriq. You can see it kind of opens up in a kind of crude way, how it kind of wobbles a little bit. But you can see this model still uses the J1772 plug with the CCS combo, and my test car here will do up to 279 miles of range, EPA estimated, which is decent, but remember the rear drive version can do up to 324. The RS rear-wheel drive has the bigger battery pack, that's the longest range. Chevy says this model can accept up to 150 kilowatts, which means you can go from 10 to 80% in about 35 minutes. That's, you know, pretty similar to most of the competition. It's an average number. The bigger battery pack can accept up to 190 kilowatts, so I imagine that'll do it in probably around 30 minutes. Now you can see, looking at the rest of the profile, the side mirrors are black painted, power folding, integrated turn signals, 4 cameras around the vehicle. You can see I love the blacked out trim along the side, same with the roof rails. If you guys are looking for a twin panel sunroof, it's sadly not available as of this filming on the all-wheel drive RS trim. You can get it on the all-wheel drive LT trim or the RS rear-wheel drive trim, but for some reason Chevy doesn't offer a pano sunroof or Super Cruise. That's something you can get again on the Equinox EV, a smaller and less expensive, you know, vehicle that rides on the same architecture. Now moving around this profile here, this is where I actually think the Blazer EV does look better, but still I prefer the design of the Equinox EV, which is just my personal preference. It definitely, you know, looks very modern and sleek. You can see the taillights, full LED design where it kind of has like this teardrop shape to the actual full LED taillight. The Blazer badge here has this unique blue 3-accent line for the E to show that this is electric. There's an integrated spoiler, rear view camera, rear wiper, which is nice, although it's not hidden underneath the spoiler itself. You can see all-wheel drive badge here along with the RS badge to let everybody know you have all-wheel drive. Down here you can see nicely integrated parking sensors, a black, gloss black painted bumper. And in this sterling gray paint, you can really see the low and wide stance to this vehicle. It really does look like a wagon, especially from this particular angle. Now, opening up the cargo area, the Blazer EV offers a fairly decent amount of space, but not great in terms of the size of the vehicle or relative to the size. You get just under 26 cubic feet of space. This is only a 2-row vehicle, as you can see. If you look underneath the floor here, there is a little bit of underfloor storage. There's your mobile charger that's included. You have level 1 and level 2 included when you buy this vehicle. And if you fold down the second row seats, it expands the cargo to around 59 cubic feet of space. 59 is certainly competitive, but you are going to get more in some of its competitors. And what's also interesting is some of its competitors that offer more space are actually smaller on the outside in terms of dimensions. So let's go ahead and move on to the interior of the Chevrolet Blazer EV. And this is where we're going to get into a point of controversy. However, before we get inside the interior, let me first show you guys the key fob. You can see this is the current intelligent access key that Chevy offers on so many models. There's a black bow tie logo on the back. It has usual buttons here for lock, unlock, remote start, panic, and of course, power liftgate function. The key itself feels nice in your hands, but I do wish it was a slightly different look, especially for the EV model. What I also appreciate as you approach the door handle of the EV Blazer, you can see it's very traditional. It's not electronic actuated door handle like some competitors. It basically pulls out the traditional way. You push that silver button there, that's what's gonna lock the door for you. The mirrors will also electrically fold in. If you touch the back of the door handle, however, that doesn't unlock the door. You have to touch the door handle button again, which I don't prefer. But that will unlock the door for you. Now, my test car has a really nice color combination with the sterling gray metallic exterior with the two-tone EvoTex Adrenaline Red with the black Ultra Suede inserts. You can see it really is very, very bright red. It adds a nice pop of color, but I also appreciate how it has that color because the outside is just kind of like a sea of silvery gray. You can see the door panel has the same EvoTex with the red, the contrasting stitching, the faux stitching here at the upper portion. There's like a textured plastic trim over here and over here, where this is more of a shiny plastic that tries to look like carbon fiber. This is just a textured dull plastic. You can see aluminum accented door handles here. You have your 2-person memory seats. Power window controls, they have the high quality feel from other GM products. It is one touch down for all 4, but only one touch up on the driver's side. I really think that Chevy should have just made it one touch up on all of them. Padded armrest here, hard touch plastic over here, a little bit of door cubby storage. You have a 6-speaker sound system in this trim. There is an 8-speaker Bose stereo, but it's not available right now on the all-wheel drive RS trim. You can get it when you step down to the LT or the rear-wheel drive RS, but again, for some reason, Chevy doesn't offer it on this particular trim. You can see the seats are a 10-way power adjustment with a 2-way lumbar support. They're also heated and ventilated. So there is an RS badge here, but the seats themselves are a little bit flat. I was expecting them to be more aggressively bolstered. I expect Chevy's going to do that for the upcoming SS version. Now, stepping inside, this vehicle with its near 8 inches of ground clearance actually has a pretty low step-in height. It's not very SUV-like to me. It's more like a wagon. And as I shut the door has a pretty solid sounding thunk, and just like Tesla, for example, when you get into this vehicle, there is no start-stop button for this car. Instead, the car knows you're in here because of the key. As soon as I put my foot on the brake, that basically turns the vehicle on. It also reminds me to buckle up if I want to shift gears. And then you can see all Blazer EVs come with the big infotainment setup. So you have a big 17.7-inch center screen here that runs off of Google. It's an Android Automotive based operating system, and you also have an 11-inch screen here for the instrument panel. And you can see the RS also includes a nice thick rimmed steering wheel, which is leather wrapped, an RS badge here with a flat bottom design, contrast red stitching. The steering wheel itself offers a manual tilt telescoping, a good amount of adjustability and range. The horn, it sounds nondescript, but I guess appropriately sized given the vehicle. You can see there's a paddle here for the max regen braking. And then you can see, as you can tell from no status bar, no Super Cruise on this model, but it does have adaptive cruise control via the buttons here, along with traditional wiper stock. No headlight controls here, however, they're actually located in the screen, and you'll have your gear selector here. If I put the vehicle into reverse, I pull toward me, then up, that brings me the full top-down 360 camera with a very good quality resolution and graphics. It also has cross-traffic trajectory and braking and parking sensors front and rear, which is nice. Come down to go into drive. Again, this electronic shifter is a great way to save space. Now, in terms of the materials, you can see the dashboard has a soft touch injection molded plastic, more of that glossy carbon fiber look plastic there. There's more of that Evo text with the stitching along this portion here, which looks pretty nice. There's a heads-up display included on this trim that you get as part of the driver convenience and assistance package. And then you can see, I love the airplane style rotary air vents, which remind me of the Camaro. There is a little bit of quality issues I'm noticing here. You can see if I zoom in right there, there's like a little bit of a gap there that's inconsistent. Don't love the way that looks, but again, I'm kind of nitpicking a little bit there. Although my test car is a full production version, you can see over here in the center stack, you've got 3 circular air vents, which are fully adjustable. There also is some pretty decent ambient lighting in the actual air vent where you can change the color. It looks okay at night, but I have to say the footwell is very dark. Some of the door panels are very dark, so the ambient lighting seems rudimentary at best. And then of course, we come back to this infotainment system here because this is where the controversy comes into play. This is basically running off of a Google-based Android Automotive system. You can hear it's always listening to me with Google, which the voice commands are pretty decent. So it also doesn't include Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. And that's because Chevy claims that their system provides enough options to viably replace Apple CarPlay. You can even go into the Google Play Store, which I have it signed in, and you can download all of these different apps if you'd like. So you can download things like TuneIn Radio, YouTube Music, iHeartRadio, and then you can also go into like a plug share system. You can also download Amazon Music, for example, and there's also Spotify. But the one thing that I actually noticed for myself is I use Apple Music, and that's where you can't find any Apple Music in this system. So you have to basically use the Bluetooth streaming audio. But going back to the native system here, you can see your drive modes are going to be selected via on the screen. There's 4 different drive modes, including a My mode. We'll talk about that later on during the driving scene. I love the embedded Google GPS, which is absolutely fantastic. It's basically the same that you find in your computer back at home, and you can quickly say things like, "Okay, Google, navigate me to the nearest Costco."
Sure, Costco wholesale.
You can see it actually will route you. It'll also tell you what percentage of charge you're gonna have. It'll tell you, it also will tell you about traffic. It'll also navigate you along chargers if you need to do so. So this is pretty much as good as any system you're gonna find in like a Tesla, at least in terms of the native software-based route planning, which is why Chevy decided to go with a Google system, because they wanted to include that. If you guys prefer to use more traditional apps from your phone, you can see there's Spotify that I downloaded, ChargePoint, and then there's Waze. Now Waze is interesting because I had a chance to actually spend time with the Waze system. You can see I can actually sign in and show people, or show, you know, all my usual settings and whatnot for the Waze system. But I have to admit, the graphics and resolution for this Waze looks a little bit different versus what I see on my smartphone. So I'm not entirely sure if Chevy's using a different version of Waze versus what you see in your actual phone itself. But overall, you can see with the apps there and the ability to download apps, it is relatively good. Although I will say that it's not still going to replace Apple CarPlay or Android Auto for some people, because most people actually want to be able to just mirror your phone, and you can't do that. So I really think that Chevy should still offer a choice of both, because this entire system is paid up for 8 years, included when you buy this car. But after 8 years, we have no idea if the software is going to become outdated, what kind of, you know, subscription service that Chevy's going to charge at that point. So I really think the native system is just another way for them to, you know, charge you and make money off of it, which I get it. GM, like so many other manufacturers, need to make money, but I think for relevancy, just being able to mirror your smartphone is the best option, at least for now. There are some viable replacements. This will read out text. You can also tell it to text people if you'd like, but it's still not quite the same as having your phone mirroring. So that's one of the reasons why I think this could be a deal breaker for many, many consumers. So just remember that a lot of the GM vehicles with EVs that have their newest infotainment system, GM in general is removing Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which I think is a big mistake. Now you can see with the big massive screen, the graphics and resolution is fantastic. You do have some buttons that are constantly staying put here from the dual zone climate control. Your heated and ventilated seat controls are located in the actual screen, and then same thing with your headlight control here. You can also turn the vehicle off via this button here, where you can actually shut the vehicle off. You don't need to though, just get out of the car and basically just lock the door. That'll also shut the vehicle off. You can also go into here and to access more controls, such as your dome light, your head-up display. You can see it's very quick and snappy and easy to use. So the native system is definitely great. It just needs CarPlay to be absolutely perfect. Now down here you can see a nice storage area for your phone. Open this up, you can see 2 USB charging ports, an actual big storage cubby, some more Evotex leather around here, piano black, nice big cup holders, and then your wireless phone charging pad is here. That's standard on this trim. Padded center console here. If I open this up, you can see it's also pretty deep. There's another USB charging port. And then you can see I mentioned earlier the seats are relatively soft, but they just don't offer much in terms of bolstering, which is disappointing. You can see over here, the glove compartment is damped, not lined with felt. It's a bin style, offers a decent amount of storage. The digital camera rearview mirror is included with this trim. You can see without it, the view out of the back is a little bit compromised, but with it, you can see practically everything. Pretty good amount of headroom because it doesn't have a sunroof, but again, I really would like to see Chevy offer a sunroof on this trim. You can get it on the Equinox EV, but not on this car, which I think is just super weird and confusing. But overall, the interior has a pretty, you know, modern look to it, but it also feels more conventional. Material quality is average, build quality is average to slightly below average. The tech looks very impressive, but again, let me know in the comment section below if this could be a deal breaker for you without the smartphone mirroring included. But let's go ahead and hop into the back seat of the Blazer EV. Now you can see as I get out of the vehicle and open the door opens up a pretty wide amount, which allows you to fit a car seat back here. Now with that long wheelbase, you get around 39 inches of legroom back here, which is pretty decent. I also love how the red carries over back here. The seats do fold down to create a near flat floor, although it is slightly raised up. The seats themselves, they do offer a slight ability to recline, but they can't slide forward and back. And then the material quality back here, this is hard touch plastic, so it's kind of a downgrade, but you have soft touch materials here and a little bit of storage cubby and hard touch materials back here. Now you can see getting back into the second row, because it's a dedicated EV architecture, there's a good amount of legroom space at 39 inches. This is where I'd have the seat to drive for my driving position at 5'7". Nice flat floor here. You have rear seat air vents, 2 USB charging ports, 3 level heated seats back here, but no cooled seats. And then you can see over here, there is an armrest that folds down and gives you 2 cup holders. In terms of the headroom space, you can see it's pretty decent, but remember, this is around 2 inches lower than the gas-powered Blazer, so you will eat into your headroom space a little bit. But overall, as you can see, if you plan to use this as a family vehicle, this definitely offers pretty much at the, you know, class leaders level in terms of space. but some competitors do offer slightly more features. And I really wish this car also had some manual retractable shades, but it's definitely still a nice place to spend time for adults or to put a child seat back here. So here we are back behind the wheel of the Chevrolet Blazer EV. Boy, has this nameplate kind of been off to a rocky start. It's been about 6 months since I drove the vehicle. And remember, when it first went on sale, it kind of was put into like a stop sale at the beginning of last year for about 3 months because of all the software issues that Chevrolet was having. It finally went back on sale in about end of March, where Chevy brought it back and they dropped the price about $6,500 compared to when it was on sale at the early part of the year. So the company has made some big changes to the vehicle, and I am driving essentially the updated model. This is the RS version with all-wheel drive, which means we have an 85 kilowatt-hour battery pack delivering up to 279 miles of range from the EPA, nearly 300 horsepower from its dual motor powertrain. I do wish that Chevy had the SS version available. Right now, as of this filming, it's still not quite yet available. It'll be available toward the end of, or it'll be available toward the end of the summer. But, you know, this is the model that I expect to be kind of the volume seller. If you guys don't live in a snow-belted area, you'll probably end up getting the rear drive version, which actually is the longest range, model of the Blazer EV because of the larger battery pack. But the last time I 0 to 60 tested this vehicle, I got just under 6 seconds, which is right around what Chevy claims. It is not going to be as fast as some of its competitors like the Mach-E, the Tesla Model Y, the Hyundai Ioniq 5, and EV6. But let's go ahead and see what we can get here. We're at 97% state of charge. We'll just floor it. It's in sport mode as well. The power is very linear as it builds up and ramps up. We got 5.85 seconds there, which is pretty comparable to the last time I 0 to 60 tested this vehicle. That time is going to be sufficient for most people. Remember, if you're coming from like a gas-powered vehicle, that time should be plenty fast, pretty much comparable to like a V6 powered crossover. Think of the gas-powered Blazer, for example. And in sport mode, it does, create a fake sound that's being played through the speakers, which sounds pretty interesting. It's kind of, designed to mimic the traditional electric motor sounds, but it's just all, enhanced and amplified through the actual speaker system. I do appreciate just how linear the power is. Instead of going with like full power right away where it's kind of jerky, Chevy wanted it to be a little bit smoother and a little bit more progressive, which is probably good for people who are not used to EVs. We'll try brake torquing it this time, see if it makes a difference. Not really, it feels pretty much the same. It really does feel kind of soft off the line, but then past like 20 miles an hour, the power really kicks in, and we got 6.4 seconds on that run. That's with it more going slightly uphill. So again, 5.8 is a perfectly respectable time. That's pretty similar to the original or the earlier renditions of the Volkswagen ID.4 with all-wheel drive. Of course, VW has updated it now to where it's doing it in like 5 seconds, which I should have one to retest at some point later this summer. That, a sub 6 second time is going to be fine, but it really also begs the question, why did they decide to make it, kind of sluggish compared to its rivals? We're used to seeing most of the competitors doing it in the sub 5 second range, even 4.4, if you look at like the EV6 and the Hyundai Ioniq 5, but 0 to 60 times aren't everything. And this is where the Blazer EV definitely feels like more of a conventional vehicle, a gas-powered vehicle. I mean, put your foot down, that's the only indication that it's an EV. There's no engine noise, there's no shifting. It just kind of takes off and accelerates and pushes you back into the seat with a nice wave of torque. I haven't had a chance to drive the front drive version of this car, but I did drive the Equinox EV with front wheel drive, and I was pleasantly surprised with how that model felt. In fact, I'll be talking about the Equinox EV a lot because Chevy essentially has two very similar vehicles unless you go for the SS trim of this car. Now, we are still piloting around in a battery electric SUV that weighs over 5,200 pounds. This platform does hide the weight relatively well. The steering is quick, responsive, not much, if not anything, in terms of actual feedback to what the tires are doing, but the RS trim is supposed to be the sportier offering, and you definitely get a sense that this vehicle feels nice and low. It feels planted, it feels, really secure, it feels heavy. Put my foot down there. The rear electric motor only delivers around 90 horsepower. 241 is coming from the front motor, so this vehicle feels more front-wheel drive bias. It's not going to have enough power to send the rear to step out. That's what you're going to have to wait for the SS model for, obviously. And then in terms of the ride quality, my test car has the 21-inch wheels. included with the RS trim. There's also a 19-inch wheel available if you guys go for the LT. The Blazer EV definitely has a very good ride quality. This is better versus the ride quality in the last Mustang Mach-E that I tested and the Tesla Model Y, but I wouldn't say it's best in class. I mean, I've definitely driven EVs that have really amazing ride quality. I mean, the most recent one that comes to mind is the Rolls-Royce Spectre. That's not a fair comparison because the Rolls-Royce is $500,000, but it really shows you that the longer wheelbase and the, the tuning that GM has done with the suspension in this car definitely have improved the ride quality compared to, what you expect from other competitors in the EV segment. Put my foot down again there. I felt the back end spin the tires a little bit, but again, it just feels really well sorted. Great linear power that's going to make most people happy. And then in terms of the noise in this vehicle, it is also pretty quiet. I don't hear a single squeak and rattle, which is good. My test car is a production version. Very little wind and road noise as well. You just hear that engine noise, which if you guys want, you can turn off that engine noise by going here into the normal function, and that will turn off the sound, the enhanced sound. So if I put my foot down there, you can still hear a little bit of it, but it's been toned down. You can go into the My mode and you can turn off the engine sound completely. Go to motor sound, and it actually only, I take that back, it only offers a normal and a sport setting. So you can't actually turn off the engine sound completely, but in sport, you can hear it's a little bit louder. Go to normal. It's just a smidge quieter. So I think it adds a little bit of drama to it. I actually really like the engine sound. In terms of the visibility, this is where I don't like the visibility of the Blazer EV because you have this really long, expansive dash, which almost feels like I'm sitting in the back seat as opposed to the front seat. This A-pillar here is also massive. I've definitely lost a car in the blind spot over there. But compared to some competitors where they have a really short front to, or front to dash axle ratio, where you have also a nice low dash, the visibility in this car takes some getting used to. If you look out of the back as well, the view out of the rear isn't what I would call, really wonderful. Now, you can get around that when you go for the digital camera rearview mirror, like what my test car has, which is fantastic. But in terms of spaciousness, the headroom is also good. The seats in this car, I will say, I'm disappointed with the seats because this is the RS trim, and I expected the seats to have a little bit more aggressive bolstering. I love the adrenaline red two-tone Evo Tex with the, the black ultra suede, the fake suede, and the fake leather material. They're grippy because of the suede, but the bolstering could be a little bit more aggressive. Now, I suspect Chevy will save that for the SS version of the car. But the RS trim, for its sportier looks, I expected better seats. There's no Super Cruise available on this vehicle as of this filming. The LT and the RS do not offer Super Cruise. The SS is supposedly going to offer Super Cruise, but we don't know the final pricing for that model just yet until Chevy finally releases it. It'll go on sale toward the end of the summer. And then, of course, there's the range. That's the million-dollar question. Now, this car on a full charge was showing 288 miles on a full charge. Now, that's good compared to the EPA's number of 279. Now, in my week's worth of testing in hot weather conditions, it's like 91 degrees right now, I took this vehicle on a long road trip, and in my actual real-world testing, I was doing around 270, 275 miles of range, depending, of course, on how fast you're driving. If you're stuck in more traffic, it's going to improve the range a little bit. That's actually pretty darn good, and it shows you that the efficiency of this car is actually pretty good as well. I was averaging around 2.7 to 2.9 miles per kilowatt, which is on the higher end of the spectrum. You can, obviously, give credit to the excellent Ultium architecture, the aerodynamics of this vehicle. It is lower, it's wider versus the gas-powered Blazer, and that helps it slip through the air a little bit better. I imagine the 19-inch wheels on the LT will improve that even further. Keep in mind, remember, if you guys go for the rear drive version, it offers up to 324 miles of range, which is actually better versus the best range you're going to get from a Tesla Model Y, the direct rival to this vehicle. The range and charging, it's average for this vehicle up to 150 kilowatts, 35 minutes, basically to go from 10 to 80%. I really would like to see Chevy offer the bigger battery pack with the standard all-wheel drive system. Remember, the SS will offer the bigger battery pack and a performance all-wheel drive system. Chevy claims that model will do 294 miles of range. That's not an EPA claim, that's Chevy's claim. So overall, if you're looking for an EV SUV that's bigger than its competitors, that has a more conventional look and feel to it, but you also have to get around the fact that there's no Apple CarPlay and Android Auto in this vehicle, which you guys saw me in my interior review. There are some features in this infotainment system that do effectively replace, what Apple CarPlay and Android Auto gives you, but it hasn't replaced it entirely, so I'm still on the fence on it. I still think, actually, Chevy should just offer both, and it could be a deal breaker for some, but As a daily driver and in terms of as an EV, the Blazer EV certainly impresses, but the big elephant in the room is the fact that you can also get the Equinox EV, a better looking car that's cheaper, that offers actually a little bit better range and improved acceleration because it's a smaller and lighter vehicle for basically not that much more. It really begs the question, why? Why do they offer two different SUVs that really have a slightly different look to them, but they're also so darn similar that it makes me wonder, which one is actually the better buy? I really won't know until I have an Equinox EV for a full week to test. Now, despite all the moaning from enthusiasts when the gas-powered Blazer was reintroduced to the States back in 2018, Chevy at one point managed to sell nearly 100,000 Blazers, gas-powered Blazers in the States in just 1 year. So sales have actually been relatively strong for the gas-powered models. Now, obviously, we are talking about the EV version of the Blazer, and Chevy has been going through a lot of bumps with the launch of this car. Because remember, when it first went on sale at the beginning part of 2024, it was immediately hit with a stop sale because of a lot of software issues between the infotainment system, between charging, between the battery. Chevy has since fixed all of that after a 3-month hiatus, and the company brought the vehicle back to market in end of March, and they also brought it back at a starting price around $6,500 less versus when this car first came out, which I'll get into the pricing in just a moment. But when we first let's first go back to actually driving the Blazer EV, because as you guys saw, this vehicle is a really easy car to live with on a daily basis. So like so many other vehicles in the midsize or compact electric SUV space, it's got a really comfortable ride quality, it's got solid handling dynamics, it has average acceleration, although average is relative in terms of EVs because 0 to 60 in under 6 seconds should be quick enough for most people. But I do think that Chevy needs to do something to make this car faster so it can keep pace with a lot of its rivals, which are around 1 second to 1.5 seconds faster. I know the SS model is coming. I'm hoping to be able to drive that hopefully later this summer. That'll offer almost 600 horsepower. That's going to be the one to compete with the Tesla Model Y Performance, a Mustang Mach-E GT Performance Edition, and of course a Hyundai Ioniq 5N or Kia EV6 GT. The backseat of this vehicle is spacious. The trunk is on the small side considering the length of the car. And really what gives me pause with the Blazer EV is the fact that the Equinox EV, its sister vehicle that's supposed to be smaller, less expensive, actually offers more features as of this filming because of perhaps the packaging and parts constraints shortage that Chevy is dealing with the Blazer EV. Because for me personally, I actually think that the Equinox EV with all-wheel drive in the 3RS trim is probably going to be the sweet spot if you guys want to go for an Ultium branded vehicle. Because as this vehicle sits, pricing when this car first came out was around $56,000, which is only around $2,000 less versus the Cadillac Lyriq, this car's platform made. Since then, Chevy has brought the car back to market with a new base price of around $48,000 for the LT with basically, all-wheel drive, which is basically the cheapest model you can buy now. There is still plans of an even cheaper version coming, which is supposedly going to be front-wheel drive. That could have a base price of around $45,000. Also keep in mind, this vehicle is built in Mexico and it does qualify for this full $7,500 federal tax credit, and Chevy currently has some nice cash on the hood, as much as $10,000 depending on the trim level. So if you guys are looking at this particular model here, the RS trim, with essentially the driver assistance package that is now included, Chevy is basically discounting it by $2,700 right now. As tested, this model here is around $60,000. That was, of course, the earlier pricing. Now this same model has been discounted to around $54,000. With the options that it has. Chevy also has $7,500 of cash on the hood for this vehicle, which is basically the tax credit, but they're giving it to you right away when you buy this vehicle, when you purchase it from a Chevy dealership, if you can find one on the lot, which brings down the as-tested price of this model here to around $47,000. I know 47 grand actually is not that much, because remember, a Tesla Model Y starts at around $45,000. A Hyundai Ioniq 5 is in the mid $40,000 range. Same thing with the Ford Mustang Mach-E. So there's a lot of things to like about the Blazer EV, but again, the Equinox EV for me, at least until I get one for a full week to test, may actually be the better buy. But I am still very much looking forward to driving the SS model. It's really just going to depend on what Chevy's going to do to the Blazer EV as we go into the 2025 model year, because they need to do more, I think, to differentiate this car between the Equinox EV and this car. But with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the brand new 2024 Chevrolet Blazer EV in the RS all-wheel drive trim. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.